Yo, Concrete, you made this?
Welcome everybody to another episode of Prolific Roots. I'm your host today, Malosi, and my brother over here,
Ricky Elite 4.
We just want to welcome you guys and thank you again for tuning in. Remember, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and then, of course, share the video, spread that good vibes. But we have a special guest with us today. I'm going to go ahead and let Ricky introduce her.
Very excited about, this is probably somebody that you guys will all be surprised that you guys are probably looking at her right now. It's like, I wonder what she does. Like, is she a model? Is she a dancer? Is she a singer? I mean, I'm going to leave y'all like 5 seconds to probably write in the comments right now what y'all think she is. Nah, I'm playing. To my right, I have Brei Wolfgramm, a.k.a. Officer Wolfgramm.
Hey.
She is a police officer. Brei, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, nice to meet you guys all. I'm Brei Wolfgramm. I've been a cop for 5 years, and I actually met him here at the gym a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago.
About a week ago.
And so that's how we crossed paths and just got to talking, and that's how I'm here today.
Yep. So amidst all of this Corona craziness, Brei, you're quarantined in the house. You're going to be there for 2 weeks. What are 3 things you cannot be without during this quarantine? Food aside, essentials aside, obviously. What are 3 things that you need with you during this craziness that's going on in this world?
3 things that I need. Oh boy. Let's see. A good book and
a good book. You're a reader?
Yes.
What book are you reading right now?
So
Jesus, the Bible.
No, I should probably pick that one up. No, I'm not reading that one. I'm actually reading a book on Jeffrey Dahmer. I really like true crime books.
Okay.
And learning about stuff like that. Hence why I'm in the job I am.
So a good book.
Yep. So good book. I would say my pets. Like I like having my pets.
Your pets?
They definitely keep me company.
Okay.
And working out, like the gym. Like
you need the gym?
All the gyms are closed.
Do you have workout equipment in your house? Because you're quarantined, so you can't leave, right? So
yeah,
P90X.
I do have some, so I gotta lift the couch or something. You know.
Hey, what?
The couch, wow.
Wow, that's innovative. Okay. Yeah. No, super excited to have Brei here on the show. Like she said, I met her at a gym. We were playing basketball, and she was there watching. She was watching her friend play, and
her friend,
yeah, who's actually waiting outside for her to be done with this. So shout outs to the friend. No, we just got to talking, and she has a very powerful story, a very powerful upbringing as to why she got involved in law enforcement, and so that's essentially what we're going to be focusing on today is her journey that led her up to want to become a cop, because this is not something that just happened and she didn't have anything that she wanted to do. This is something that she had planned and was like, okay, before she became of age, she knew that, and when I say age, I mean 18, she knew that she wanted to pursue this law enforcement path. And her reasoning behind that is extremely powerful, and that's something that we want to dive into, and we'll focus on a little bit of a few other things regarding that. But yeah, I guess let's not waste the people's time anymore. Brei, go ahead and talk a little bit about your background, your upbringing with your family, siblings, parents. What was your upbringing like?
Okay. So I come from a very big family, as most Polynesian homes are, right?
Right.
So there's 10 kids in my family. So there's 12 of us total. That includes my parents.
That's not most Polynesian families. I mean, for any non-Polynesians watching,
she meant to say Mormon.
That's fair.
Facts.
Okay, that's fair. So I come from a very big family. I've got 6 brothers and 3 sisters. So my mom, so it's kind of a mix of like his, hers, and ours. So my mom was married, and she had 3 kids in her first marriage. My dad had 4. My stepdad had 4 from his previous. They got together and had 3 together. And then I guess like talking about upbringing, like I guess my whole life, like I was very into music. right? And a lot of my family is very music oriented. Like they really love music and singing and stuff. And so that was actually a career path that I thought I was going to take myself.
Singing
as well, was singing. Yeah.
Really?
Really.
What show were you contemplating on trying out for? Be real.
So actually, I have already tried out for American Idol twice.
Oh, okay.
So I actually did.
Did you get to
do
Hollywood?
that. No, I did not. So I
they
actually.
tripping.
So the first time I tried out, I was 16, and did not make it past the first round. And then just last year, I did try out, made it to the second round, and then I didn't get pushed through to the next one.
Where did you go to try out? Like, was it just, did you have to like send a video in? I always wondered like how did that.
So the first one was out in California. I flew out to California and auditioned there. And then this last one was actually just here. They did like some, they stopped on their way to, I don't know where they were headed, but they had stopped here in Utah. And the auditions were actually out in Rose Park.
Oh, really?
Nice.
That's where that was at.
Yeah, it's either you're really bad and you make the show, or you're really good, right?
Yeah.
So you were just in between. You probably like right before the really good people.
Probably, I don't
Yeah, we'll just keep it at that.
I mean, we can find out right now. I'll be Simon Cowell. You can do your thing. What you want to do?
Oh, no, I'm good.
And before we go any further, before she starts talking about her family, we are related. So don't try to put in the comments family members like, oh, you're probably related. We are. We don't know each other.
They are related. They
we
just
didn't
found
eat
out
noodles
right before
together, so we just gonna keep it at that.
Yeah.
So
That's fine.
Okay, so you wanted to be a singer. This is probably something that were you passionate about it then? I mean,
yes, I was. So like I did singing groups as a little kid. My grandfather
out here in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So my grandfather actually signed me up for performances out all around the valley. So I performed at the Gallivan Center, at the State Fair, at Taylorsville Days, West Fest.
Oh, you was active out here.
Yeah, like I was doing a bunch of performances and stuff here and there. And then, it's just as I got older, there was just the switch that led me to my law enforcement career. And I can tell you, I honestly didn't think I was going to be where I am today. Like I thought I would still be pursuing music at this point.
Right. You went to high school out here, right, in Utah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And did you have a plan for college, or what was that like as far as like, did your parents say, hey?
So my parents wanted me to go to college. So I very much I love school. I'm kind of like big bookworm
nerd
person. Yeah.
That's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm a nerd.
Bookworm. Bookworm. You're trying to make it sound cool. It's a nerd.
Yeah, I was trying to make it sound cool. Okay. So I really love school. I love to learn. And so my parents were like, yes, you need to go to college and stuff, right? And so it actually was my senior year, which actually was what piqued my interest into law enforcement. Like I said, it like wasn't even planned. And it wasn't until you can't get into law enforcement until you're 21.
Okay.
So I had to wait a couple of years, but it was when I was like 17, 18 was when I first got interested.
I didn't know that. So from 18 to 21.
Yeah, I thought it was 18. Like, shoot, they let you join the army when you're 18.
You just like do JROTC or what?
No, so to become a police officer, you have to be 21.
Oh, okay.
You have to be 21 because that's the age that you have to be to even be able to have a handgun anyway.
Oh,
so
that's
it was
true.
21 years old.
You can have a rifle at 18, but you can't have a handgun.
Yes.
I don't know how that makes sense, but whatever.
I don't make the rules.
We don't make the laws. Yeah, we don't make the laws.
I don't make the rules. I just enforce them.
Perfect. Okay, so 17, you said that your interest was piqued to get into law enforcement. Let's talk about that. Take a moment or several moments if you want to talk about what happened in your life at that time and that made you want to get involved with law enforcement, because I feel like that's an early age to know that that's what you want to do. I mean, some people are fortunate enough to know what they want to do earlier than that, and that's great. But I mean, I know a lot of people that don't figure out what they want to do until they like 25. I mean, that's just the facts of it. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, people come to that stage in their life much later or much earlier than others. Right. But I still feel like 17 or 18 or whatever it is that you said, I still feel like that's an early age to know that, okay, I'm committed to this path and this is what I want to do. So talk about what happened at that time in your life that made you want to commit to getting involved in law enforcement.
Okay. So that was my senior year in high school, right? And so I was a student body officer in high school, and every year, as most people know, high schools do like a charity every year, and
right.
most of the time people do like the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
I know, yeah.
So most of the time they do that. In my year, we were like, oh, well, let's do something different, and we came across a charity called Child Rescue, and it was about children who were survivors of human trafficking, and the whole point of raising money for it was to be able to, help them get back to normal life, and to also help local law enforcement and I believe possibly FBI. I don't remember quite all the information for that, but like it was to help them, like help the victims and survivors of that like push through. And so in learning more about that charity, we actually got to meet some of the survivors of the human trafficking, and we got to watch a lot of video tutorials where they actually talk about what life was like.
How old were these? Were they young kids? Like, what were their?
I think the youngest was 6 or 7, but they do have children who are born into that world, who are, obviously there were women who were having children that were within the human trafficking world, and to these children, they didn't know anything different. Like, this was normal life. That was their normalcy. That was their normal. And so in learning that, and, obviously I talked to my family about it. My parents, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, look what I'm learning. This is what we're learning about this charity. And it actually was brought to my attention that I have a family member who is a survivor of human trafficking, and I had no idea. No idea.
So you had no idea before all this happened. So you went home and said, or shared your experiences with your parents or your mom, and then that's when they told you the story about your family member?
Yeah.
Were you close with that family member?
Yes, and I had no idea.
Wow.
Like,
that's insane.
Like, it just blew my mind. But I mean, it did make sense as far as like, the lack of dating and not being married and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense, right? And I'm at an age where I understand like exactly what human trafficking was, right? And so after learning that, like, it actually, like, it broke my heart. It made me really sad, because I was like, I couldn't imagine, when you're first learning about it, you're thinking, this is so awful. I couldn't imagine what it would be like for these kids to live through this. But it's like a whole different ballgame when you realize that somebody close to you,
oh, for sure,
that was their reality.
Right.
Like, they lived that. And I wouldn't wish that upon anybody I disliked. Like, I don't want anybody to live that life. And so after learning that, my question was, well, how do I stop it? Like, how do I become a part of stopping it? What can I do?
So at that age, 17, I mean, you're part of the student body. You're figuring out that kids are involved with this as young as 6. Some are born into this life, and then you find out that someone that was close to you was actually a survivor themselves, and that's when you were like, this is what I want? Or is just like, at that point, was it just kind of like, okay, well, what can I do? I know I'm just one person. I'm a young person. Is it just like, what can I do? Or is like, I want to get into law enforcement? Well,
so at that point, I was asking, well, what can I do? How do I do my part? Helping this go away. Like, obviously, being one person, right? Obviously, I can't make it all go away by myself.
But you can.
But I
help,
can
right?
at least do my part. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, if I have some help, right, or if I start educating more people about it, like, I feel like if you're more educated about it, you're more aware, then people are going to do more to help you out. And so that's why I was like, well, how do I become a part of the solution, right? And I found out, okay, well, it's actually going to lead me down a path of law enforcement, right? And that was what I thought. And I said, okay, well, how do I get into that? And I learned that I had to be 21 to get into it. So I had to wait a while, right? Obviously, I'm at a young age where I'm like not 100% sure, like, what, exactly what path I was going to take. So I actually, before I became a police officer, I decided to do 911 dispatch first.
Really?
Yeah. So I was a dispatcher for 2 years. And after taking the 911 calls and being on that side of the radio, if we'll say, like, I learned, like, that was confirmation for me that, I want to be on the other end.
So that didn't scare you off? Because I can't imagine I've probably called 911 maybe like once or twice in my life. I mean,
never.
I was never, I was never frantic about it. But I mean, you obviously watch movies, and I hear recordings sometimes of people that call in, and, just how panicky they are, and just super frantic and just scared. And so, I mean, those experiences when you're on the phones and you're listening to these people calling in that are, probably going out of their mind because they're scared of whatever's going on. That didn't scare you off to like, oh, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'll try something else.
So, I mean, there were times that like my heart would race a little bit sometimes. And, but you go through trainings as a dispatcher where they're telling you like, look, like you are that calm voice. Like you have to be able to bring that person back into focus, right? Because you think about it, there are the 3 stages. There's the fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so you kind of, kind of depends on like how you're going to respond in that moment, right? And most of the time people are like, they're leaving, right? They're taking off, they're freaking out, or then you got the people who are frozen in fear, don't know what to do. And so they're expecting you to be that calm voice. They expect you to know what to do. Right. So the reason they're calling you is because I don't know what to do. You know what to do, or you know how to get the person who knows what to do to me. Right. And so, it was expected that I be that calm, collected voice, right? And especially for, when I was a dispatcher, like you had to be calm for the officers as well. Yeah. Because I can tell you now, being on the other side of the radio, it's definitely comforting. Like when my dispatcher is coming over the air and she's calm and collected and she's telling me all these horrible things that are happening, right? It's like
in the most calm voice,
in the most monotone, calm voice. She's telling me all the horrible things that are happening, and she's telling me where I'm going, right? And it actually is really helpful. It's very calming. It actually helps me focus and make sure I don't get like a tunnel vision or something, right? And so when I did that for a couple of years, like it just confirmed for me, like, this is what I want to get into, but I'm on the wrong side. Right. So then you want to be more involved. I need to be more hands-on. Yep. And so then I learned how to get into the academy and kind of just went from there.
Right. Let's go back a little bit because I'm a little emotional right now. Not gonna lie, because Rick had told me about your situation, and this is kind of a heavy subject because this is big within the poly community, as far as sexual assault, rape, all of those things, right? Under that category of sexual assault. And to me, the biggest thing is communication, right? And I feel like we lack communication within the poly community. And I don't want to get too into, we're not on this show to tell you guys how you should, fix your lives or live your lives. We're more so focusing on the positive things, how to become a cop and, the positives of being a cop and serving your community. But I did want to touch on that because it wasn't until you had that experience in school and then found out those things about your family member. But there's a lot of teenagers, young women, young men as well, who have no idea what's going on, right? A lot of people are oblivious to those things. And so it's important that us at least for me, it's important that I teach my kids, these are the things that can happen, right? For instance, my son, he's only 5, but he knows when we walk in a store that you hold on to the cart or mommy and daddy's hand. Right. If not, somebody's going to kidnap you. Right. That's, and it's not to scare him, but it's so that he's aware, because we hear it all the time. And I was telling Rick when he said it, he was like, she became a cop because she, had these experiences. And I was like, man, I always wanted to start like a task force that stood in, in a Walmart parking lot and just waited. Cause we hear those stories, like people snatching up kids at Walmart, and I'm like, and nobody's helping. Right. Or there's people helping, but a lot of times, people get away with it. Yes. And so I think that's huge. And you luckily had that experience, and then you learn those things, and that opened your eyes to that world. Right.
Right. And well, and I mean, it's just like kind of like I mentioned earlier, right? It's all about like educating people on it. Right. And it's just like I told you, like I had no idea. Right. I had no idea that I, was related to somebody who was a victim and a survivor of this like horrible thing. Right. And so I think that's what was the biggest push for me, right, was to make a difference, because it's, I think it's different when people watch the news or read a newspaper, if that still happens, or looks on Facebook and
when they hear about this stuff going on,
right? Or if they look on Facebook and they're like, oh, I saw that this horrible thing happened here, and I can't believe that. I couldn't imagine that. Well, now think about like when it actually happens to you or somebody you love, like if obviously, right, something happens to your kids, like you're going to do everything you can to protect them. You want to protect them, and boy, help the person that decided to hurt your kid, right?
I'm still with that task force if y'all want to do it.
So like that was my biggest thing, is like, my family member didn't exactly get all the justice that she deserved. And so this was my way of
I feel like victims never really can, though. I mean, they could get everything under the book, and it still wouldn't feel
like obviously our system isn't perfect,
sure,
right? But like I can tell you, I definitely, just from my point of view, my opinion, right? Like I definitely do everything I can to make sure that that person gets the help that they deserve, sure. Because I am thinking. These are strangers that I'm talking to when I'm at work, but I'm thinking if you were my family member, I would want the person who is supposed to help you go out of their way to do everything they could to make sure that you get the justice you deserve, right? My aunt didn't get the justice that she deserved, not all of it anyway. And so this is my way of trying to repay her that justice, right? And also help those who deserve it. And you know, because a lot of people, especially in sex crimes and stuff, they don't come forward. Yeah. A lot of people are scared to come forward, whether it be religious beliefs, whether it be embarrassment, whatever it may be that's holding them back. They think that they can't report it, or they think that no one will believe them. And, that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm here, because I'm like, no, I am here to listen to you and believe you because, I know somebody who went through this. Right. And so I would like to say that I could tell the difference between somebody who is telling the truth and who isn't.
Right. I think and that's you making that difference that you wanted to make. I mean, however big or small that change is happening, and you're the reason for that. And so, but let's kind of go back, because I know we kind of jumped a little bit ahead of there, but let's go back to okay, so you knew that you wanted to commit to this path. You were on dispatch, and now you wanted to be on the other side you wanted to be receiving those dispatch calls as opposed to dispatching them. Yes. So you found out how to get into the academy. You're a brand new. You're green. How do they?
They're known as cadets.
Cadets.
Yes.
Okay. So, hey, I don't know. I mean, some people mission talk. Yeah, a lot of people say that. It's not just in.
I know. Call them red tabs. They're new. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're brand new coming into this. What was your mental like? I mean, what were your thoughts at, like, coming in? Like, were you just super energetic? Like, talk about that.
Oh man, yeah. So anybody who's like I mentioned earlier, anyone who's seen the movie Zootopia. That was definitely me. Like, I was all sorts of excited and pumped, and I was like, I'm going to make the world a better place. Like, this is going to be great, And, I did not think it was going to be as difficult as it actually was. Right. I actually thought that, I was like, no, people are great, and people just make, they make bad choices all the time. And I'm just there to tell them, hey,
don't do that.
Yeah, don't make that bad
put that down. Right? You didn't pay for that.
Sir, please put the knife down. Yes. I was like all excited, right? Like I just was like, yes, like I'm going to make the world a better place.
I'm finally doing great. What I want to do. This is my calling.
I was in like superhero stance. Like, this is going to be great,
Then they threw you that vest and said, go write parking tickets.
Yeah. They were like, are you even old enough to be here? To make it worse, I had braces at the time.
Oh man.
So they thought that they didn't check my ID when I started. They thought I was like 10.
They probably thought you were there for a ride along. Like,
seriously. Yeah, they thought I was an explorer. They didn't actually think that I was there to be a cop. But when I first started, I was like super excited. I'm still excited. Like, sure. I still love the job, but I will say it has definitely, it has changed me for good and bad, I would say.
So you're naive at this point, right?
Yes, very much so.
At what point did you have to snap out of that naiveness and just say, okay, you know what? I can't be oblivious to this anymore. Obviously, this world is a lot grimier than I thought it was.
Yeah, so it's just like I said, right? Like, obviously, I was very excited. I still smile and, kind of bounce when I walk, I guess is what the guys say. I bounce, and I don't mean to. I try to be a happy, positive person. So, I was still thinking, even I had been to some, pretty scary calls at that moment, right, when I first started. And I was like, oh, no, it's still great, still great, still great. It wasn't until I had a friend that got killed on the job that changed my mindset, that actually it really hit me. I was like, oh,
this real.
Yeah, this is real. Life. It's different. It's just like I said, it's different when you see an article online, or when, you know, you get people that talk about, oh, did you hear that this officer was killed here? You know, like, it's different when you know the person, and, you know, when the last thing you said to them, like, you're thinking, like, did I say something good? Like, I mean, the last thing I had said to my friend was, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Right? And I was like, man, like, I could have said something better. like that made a real difference in my life. And I thought, wow, like, this is real. Like, there are people who don't care who I am, who don't care that I, you know, am one of 10 kids, that don't care that I, you know, just want to help them become better or make better choices or understand that they're struggling. Like, there are people out there who just don't care. They don't want to hear my life story. They don't want to talk to me about what's going on in theirs. And it wasn't until then that it really hit me that I was like, wow, like, you know, and for a while, you know, when that happened, my parents were very much, hey, like, are you sure this is a job you want to be in? Do you want to do this? Like, you know, my mom begged me, like, please get out, please stop. You know, my grandparents were, you know, telling me, please stop. This is scary. Like, this is becoming too real for us. Right. Yeah. And, I told them, you know, I was like, no, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I was like, I haven't finished my work here. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I need to be. And people still need my help, even more so now with it being such a dark time, right? You know, obviously I don't know if I've made a lot of difference in people's lives, but if I've at least planted at least one kind of seed of change, and hopefully it grows further, you know, whether it be by my hand or somebody else's, like, that's all I can hope for.
Right. Man. That made me think about the Kobe thing, because everybody, you know, as soon as Kobe died, everybody's like, oh, reach out to your family members, reach out to your friends and close loved ones. Yeah. And it's the same thing you said, like, I could have said something better to him, right? Yeah. And you never know when it's the last time you're going to be able to say, I love you to somebody, or, Facts. You know, who, you know, what you really want to say to that person, right? So that's deep. That's really deep. Yeah. So now you're a cop. Did you want to share any stories or anything that have you had any incidents or things that happened with sex trafficking while being a cop?
So there have been, like, I can't really talk details about cases and stuff. Yeah. Obviously there have been, like, there's still people that come in and report those kind of crimes that, you know, that happen to them and everything. And I guess, like, the most I will say on it is we get a lot of people that will say, well, you know, I was too scared to report it because I'm afraid of cops, or I was too scared for anybody to find out, or I was embarrassed. And, like, the only thing I can push for that, like, the only thing I can say or plead, you know, is, you know, our justice system may not be perfect, but I don't think that anybody deserves to go through that kind of trauma, and I don't want you to go through it alone.
Right.
So if you can, even if, you know, you want to just come and talk to me for a couple of hours. I tell victims all the time, I said, you know what, we can talk about anything you want to, and then we'll talk about it later. You know, I'm like, you don't have to tell me details or whatever, because obviously that's a hard thing. Like, if you think about it, you know, something as intimate as that, right? It's something so personal, and it's been violated, right? You know, that's a hard thing to come out to family and friends about. So why would you talk to a stranger about it? You know, and I always tell people, I say, you know, sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger about the things that you've been through in your life, because either you come across that stranger, you know, once in a lifetime and it's done, and you never have to see that person again, and it just felt good to get that off your chest.
Get it out, vent.
Or, you know, like, you know, maybe you do see them again, and it's nice to have somebody know what you went through. And like, that's like my biggest push, is all I can plead is, I'm like, if something happened to you, like, don't suffer through that trauma by yourself. Like, come forward and report it and talk, you know, like me, I'm always like, please talk to me, like, tell me about it. Like, that's the whole reason why I got in this job, was to help you. You know, I didn't get into this job because I thought I was better than everybody else. I did it because I wanted to help everybody.
Right. And that's very rare, because sometimes you get cops who are there for other reasons, right?
For real.
You see it a lot.
We don't speak on that too much.
Yeah, we won't, but I'm just saying that's rare, that the reason that you went into it, you know, had a bigger motive than what, you know, most people do. So
I don't know if this happens still. I mean, it's 2020, you know, so hopefully it doesn't. But I feel like it's always going to. So when you first started about 5 years ago, I'm just going to assume, and if I'm wrong, please correct me and I'll be happy that I'm wrong. But I'm just going to assume that people looked at you coming in as this, I don't want to use the word petite, but small, women, whether that be officers that have already been in the police department already, or whether it be to people that when you respond to calls that you get. I'm sure. Well, let me ask first. Did you find that people were kind of like looking down at you because you were a woman, or did you feel like maybe some of your colleagues or the people that you responded calls on those calls to? Do you feel like they kind of looked down at you, or kind of like saw you as, you're not fit for this, or you can't fulfill the requirements of this job as best as I can? Like, do you feel like you faced a lot of that? Do you still face any of that? Like,
so I will say that that definitely is, it's still a challenge.
Really?
That is still a challenge. Being a small, or petite as it would be referred to, woman in law enforcement, like, that is still a challenge. Like, obviously, I guess the best way I can explain it right is like, you walk into a room full of people, right? So if a bigger dude, right, walks into a room full of people are like, ooh, like I'm not gonna mess with that dude.
His
right?
presence and size alone is kind of like commands that respect.
Exactly. They're like, don't mess with that guy, right? But here I come, walking
shut down
in,
a party,
and I'm just, 5'3", like short, undersized Tongan. People think that. They're looking at me and they're thinking, okay, how can I overpower her?
Yeah.
Right. Which obviously I understand that I have limits. Obviously I'm not as strong as a dude. I am strong. I'm not going to say that I'm not strong, because. Oh
yeah. You be in the gym.
Yes. Shoot. I go to the gym. So like, I'm not as strong as a dude. Like I said, like I know my limits and stuff, but I think that's why I worked harder than ever to make it to where I am today, because there are the people, whether they are, coworkers or people on the outside, that, think that me being an undersized person would not be fit for the job, because, most people, when they imagine an officer, right. And we spoke about it earlier. Most people, when they imagine an officer, they automatically say him.
No, I mean, that's when I told my brothers about, hey, I met an officer today. I don't know if it was Monte or Losi. They were just like, oh, well, what's his story? And then I'm like, well,
it wasn't me.
It wasn't you. I mean,
yeah. So like people just automatically say, and I mean, yes, it is a male dominant field. Which for good reason in certain aspects of the job, there's a definitely good reason why we have men in the job, right? Which I am all for it. Like, I'm not against it, but like, I also think it's really good to have a woman's perspective as well. I want to say that we've changed a lot of perspectives in the job as women, just because I feel like women are more women are better at communication, and men are just like, you here now, right? And the woman's like, well, how did we get here? Like, why did we get here? Like, in general.
I mean, hold on, I communicate now. My wife don't communicate. No, I'm for overall, right? Like, the guys are just kind of like, all right, well, we're gonna do it this way right now, and women are always like, but why? Yeah,
like, why are we doing this, right? And that's something that we're trying to change in law enforcement, right? Is to bring more of that critical thinking, right? Which is why we've been working more on like de-escalation and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I definitely, like even when I was in training, like all the time, like I would have my suspects, they would be like all riled up and they get mad, and my trainer was like shaking their head, like this undersized Tongan's gonna get her butt handed to her. And I would like go over and talk to them, right? And it was just something, I don't know how, but I guess we call it verbal judo. Like, I was able to talk to them and kind of bring them down.
Right.
And then my trainer would be like, how did you do that? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Right.
I just started talking and asking like,
me.
I was just being me. And like my personality, I'm more of like a, like down to earth, like joking around. Like that's just like my nature. I'm very happy. Like I said, like some of the guys are like, why do you bounce? Like, like why are you always smiling? And so I think that kind of like tore some barriers down with some of the people I've come across in my career. And so I actually learned that it helped. Now, that's not to say that I haven't been in a fight or two, because I have.
You win.
But Yes, obviously I'm here.
Okay, what's your record in the streets?
Yes.
No, I'm kidding.
Yes, but don't come across my dad either. He's the one who taught me. But yeah, so like, obviously that's a challenge, right? So like I told you, like I know my limits and stuff, but I do everything that I can to make sure that I am still on par to make sure that I can still do my job as well as the guys do as well. I will say the physical aspect was definitely a thing too. It was like I told you, like when I first started, I was like 110 pounds, maybe wet. Like I was very tiny,
right?
And it wasn't, when I learned that, I was like, oh, like I'm actually gonna have to like get physical with people sometimes, right? And that's actually one of the biggest reasons too why I started getting into the gym. And getting fit and stuff. I was like, oh, I better start lifting weights.
Start getting in that kitchen, start eating more.
Yeah.
Start lifting real weights.
Eating more, lifting
going
weights.
Crazy.
Yeah. Still won't eat taro though.
Oh, see, you could have been a lot heavier.
You're not cooking it right. That's why. You're not cooking it right.
Okay, so jumping into now, I mean, you're at where you're at. What are your ambitions moving forward? You know, what are some of your future goals that you're hoping to reach within this field?
So one of my bigger goals, like obviously, like I'm really enjoying working for a local agency. Like I love it. Like obviously, eventually, like everybody always wants to go federal, which is something that I still want to do. Just not yet. I really enjoy my work with the people.
Really?
Like I love, like at the time that I already have in, like, yes, I probably could try to move forward and be a detective and stuff, but I really love being on patrol because it's more like I'm more within the community and I've gotten to know a lot of people. A lot of people are very familiar with me now, and it's been really cool to like I can tell you, like there are a couple kids that I come across that I first came across when I first got hired, and now I run into them now, and they're, I have had a few that are like, hey, like because of you, I'm going back to school and I'm doing this, and I'm like, that's great. Like,
good
even
job,
just
Ray
that,
Ray.
right? I had a mom call me, her 6-year-old wouldn't go to school. And
6 years old?
6 years old.
Calling the police already on your 6-year-old?
6
That's
years old.
wild.
Yes. So coming from my background, like I was like, my mom will slap me and make me get in the car. And so like I was like, nope, not today. And I told him, I said, do you want to grow up to be dumb? And he goes, no. And I go, all right, get in my car. So I put him in my car. I drove him to school. Walked him in, introduced myself to his class, and said, okay, like little Johnny didn't want to grow up to be dumb, so that's why he's here.
He sounded like she lying, but that's my girlfriend.
I sat him down in his chair, and I said, you going to be at school tomorrow? And he said, yeah. I never had a problem with him again. His mom's never called again.
He probably ain't never going to forget that.
School.
Badass little Johnny.
For real.
Yeah, little Johnny wanted his education, that's for sure.
So you're wanting to work at a local agency then before you try and make that jump to
just because like right now I'm really enjoying working with the people and getting to know my community that I work for, and like I just like, I'm a people person, like I'm a very social person, and so I love being out within the community and getting to know like the areas that need more attention or the people who need help and stuff like that. So.
Why do you want to go into federal? Is it because it seems like most people that I've talked to, I had a buddy who just went into the police force and whatnot, but his end goal is to be federal. What's the whole
so there is, and I don't know why my mind's
pay increase
going blank.
Is that
now. Why? You definitely don't get in the job for the money. I can tell you that. Like if you're trying to get in law enforcement for the money, like that's even
for federal, it doesn't. There's not
like I guess they do pay better, but like my whole point of it is like the whole point of getting in that job period is like you're mainly there to just help people. Like
well, I'm sure at the federal level you'd have more resources to be able to help. Yes,
and I mean like any first responder job, like it doesn't pay well, and that's why like when you tell people like if you're looking to get into this job, it better not be for the money because it's not there. Yeah. And a lot of people will tell you, no, I'm here to help people. That's like the main answer. Right. And so generally for federal, like what I want to do, I don't, for some reason the name is escaping my mind, but I want to be on the team that helps with like child abductions too, which also opens up into the world of like child abuse, sex abuse and stuff.
I have a brother that's actually trying to start a task force. I don't know if you are interested in that, but he's over me.
Oh,
I'll be hiring soon. I'll be hiring soon. We're going to pay good too.
As long as there's Lupulu, I'll be there.
and Taro.
The right way.
And never mind. Just kidding. I like it when my dad makes it, I guess.
No, the only reason why I asked is because usually, I mean, I've only talked about 4 or 5 people that were in your same field and wanted to go federal. So is it less social then? Because I know you said you like being...
So I think it just kind of depends on whatever position you have, right? And so the one that I really was interested in, that I haven't looked at for a while just because I've been more focused on the local stuff, is the child abduction team, which is actually really cool. They're actually the same team that worked in the Elizabeth Smart case as well, and they actually came out and did a training a couple years ago, which I did attend, which actually really piqued my interest and was really cool. I learned a lot about that. I like that.
Who's Elizabeth Smart?
She was the girl that got kidnapped like a couple years ago. A while ago now. Long time ago, yeah. She got kidnapped out of her house.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of her house?
Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
You guys don't? Okay.
Is there a series on it?
Yeah.
Because I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't. I don't like watching those.
So she actually does the documentary. She does it herself.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can look into that. Her story is actually a pretty wild story. Pretty wild.
Yeah. All of it is wild. If you're ever involved in something like that, it's wild from the beginning to the end. So
that's cool.
So talk about a little bit of because I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but there may be a young Polynesian man or woman, or young man or young woman that have thought about law enforcement. What is that process like? And granted, people, I mean, we know that you don't all live in Utah, and so the qualifications or requirements might be different in the states that you live in. But I feel like generally they might be the same. So talk a little bit about that process of what it's like to get into law enforcement and to become an officer.
Okay. So for Utah, at least, you have to take like a written exam first. It's known as the N-Post.
Right.
I believe that you can take it at the Salt Lake Community College at the Miller campus. That's in Sandy. And so you can register online for it. I'm sure they're not doing in-person testing right now with the virus out. But you sign up to take that test. They do have like a study book for it at their bookstore. And it's a really thin book. It's a very basic like reading, writing, and math test, like very basic test. You take that, you pass it. One of my best suggestions would be to take the test, and once you pass it, you'll keep your results, and then I would suggest applying for a police department, whatever department you're interested in, and then I know that most of them require that you submit your N-Post results with your application, and then if you make it through the background and all the other things that the department will do to hire you, right, the hiring process, once you make it through the hiring process, most of the time they will sponsor you through the academy. So that's your job. So they'll pay you to go to the academy. But even then, like, you still need to make sure you're passing all the tests within the academy. That doesn't secure your job.
Sure.
So you still have to pass all the tests, both all the written and the physical portions. And then you go through, after you've graduated the academy, you go through what's called field training. And so you are on probation for a while. And you have a field training officer, so they're shortened. It's FTO. So you have
in field or like just
training
day.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
That's the
so
only kind of cop I've been.
Yeah, like you. So they'll get
old
you.
School Cuddy riding around with Denzel.
Right. So they legit they put you in the car and you're taking calls. And like you learn as you go, right? And so you have a senior officer in the car with you, and they're teaching you how to handle every call, right? And then you'll learn how to write all the reports. That portion was not told to me.
Those report writing ones?
The job, yeah. I did not know that there's going to be so much report writing. But it makes so much sense now when people are like, I need a police report. And I'm thinking, I didn't even think that I had to write that. Like, yes, you have to write that. But like they teach you how to write the reports and stuff, and you just get to learn a bunch of different things depending on the agency you work for about like how to handle certain situations, whether they be high or low priority.
Wow, I don't know if I could do that. One thing I heard during all that was you got to take one test, and then you got to take another test, then you got to take this test, and then we got to go to the infield test. Like what?
But they're actually not too bad. They're not too bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you've been through a lot. You've had a lot of things that have gone on to where you could have easily said, "I'm done. You know, this is not really something that I want to do," or you know, you even had family that have reached out to you and say, "Please, you know, think of something else that you want to do. You know, you're a talented person. Just do something else." And you still remain steadfast and you were committed to this path. And so listening to your story and, you know, having an opportunity to tell your story to our people that are listening now, what is, if you could just push one message, you know, or I guess the underlying message of everything after people hear your story, what is that message that you want them to get from listening to your story?
So I guess like the biggest message that I would put out there is the fact that, I mean, you can really do anything that you put your mind to. I mean, think about it. I am a undersized, you know, minority woman in a dominated male's field, right? And I had a lot of people along my way in my journey telling me, no, you can't do this. Right. You're not supposed to do this, right? And then, you know, especially just like in the way of like growing up in my family, yeah, like my parents, nothing against my parents. I love my parents to death and I'm so grateful for what they taught me, right? And like, you know, I thought growing up that I, you know, was destined to be just a nurturer, right. You know, a mother. And I learned that, and then one day I thought, hey, well, I want to be a protector. You know, how do I become the protector? Right. And so I guess my biggest message would be like, anything you put your mind to, like, don't stop because somebody told you can't do it. Like, I am one of the biggest examples of showing people that I could do what I put my mind to. Like, I was like, no, like, I'm going to do this. Right. And yes, I had my days where I was breaking down, crying at home because I had so many people who were against me, right? But if you talk to any of my coworkers, a lot of them will tell you, you know, like, because they, you know, a lot of them saw me go through those challenges as well. And one of my favorite coworkers, you know, he was like, he goes, I just love that you keep going with the punches. Like, you just keep going through no matter how many times people have told you no. And I said, I feel like if I do give in, you know, to people telling me that I couldn't do it, then overall, you know, yeah, they may win, but, you know, like overall, like I'm going to be disappointed in myself.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. And so like, I think, you know, I definitely learned a lot about myself and how to be independent. And like my biggest push is like, if you've got something, you know, on your mind that you can do, right, no matter what the occupation is. And I have come across a lot of Polynesian people, men and women, who have said, yeah, I was thinking about being a cop, but then I thought, oh, nah, I can't do it. You know, they think, oh, I can't do it because, you know, my family wouldn't like it, or I'm not in shape. And, you know, and I'm like, just because somebody says that you're not in shape enough to do it doesn't mean that you can't change that.
Facts.
You know, like you can change that. You can get in shape.
Yeah.
You can change that if you want to do it. You know, if you're really serious about it. Like I actually had, like I told you, I had a couple of, there were actually a couple of poly guys at the gym that were like, hey, I didn't know you were a police officer. They came on a ride along and they loved it. It was a great night for them to come on a ride along. They learned, and
that's pretty cool.
You know, and he was like, yeah, he goes, you know, I always said I wanted to be a cop, but actually being able to come and see what it was like, definitely, like, it was cool to watch him. He was super inspired. Like, he was like, yeah, I want to do this now. Like, I'm all for it, you know, and he's not old enough yet, but like, he knows what he needs to do now to become one. Right. And so like, that's just my biggest push is do it even when they say you can't. Like, keep going. Like, don't give up because somebody told you no.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
like,
mindset thing, right?
Yeah, it really is. And like, I feel like a lot of things in this world wouldn't be accomplished if people stopped doing what they were doing because someone told them they couldn't do it.
That's true. That's true.
And that's good on you for real that you're, you know, being an advocate for our poly people to become, you know, police officers and helping our community. Because growing up, at least where we grew up, it was always like cops were the bad guys, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, we don't call the cops. You know, we handle it ourselves or whatnot. Yeah. But in a real situation, you're glad that the cops show up, right?
Yes,
and, you know,
exactly.
Especially when it has to do with your family members and the safety of your family members, is you're glad when the cops show up. And I think that's big because riding around town here in Utah County where I live, there's nothing but white people. I'm a minority here. And my biggest fear is just being pulled over, being a black man in this world today. Not that I don't fear it, but it's something that always lingers there in the back of my mind. Yeah. And I always thought about, if it was a black cop or, in this situation, a Polynesian cop that pulled me over, it probably put me at a little bit more ease that, this person, looks like me. They're not going to be scared of me like how some cops are. And so that's I think that'll be big if we can get more of our people in that field. So
that was actually what we were talking about earlier. I've spoken about it. There are not very many Polynesian police officers out there. We're actually very few. And I wish there were more because it's just like you said, right? Like you're more comfortable being with somebody who is the same, ethnic background as yourself, right? And I think that's where the gap is there are officers who don't understand the cultural differences. And I think that does speak to a lot of the problems that have occurred, right? The disconnect between law enforcement and people of other cultures, because they're not that the officer is bad for not understanding it, but because they weren't taught, that cultural difference. And so, that's why I'm always saying, like, when I do come across poly people and they tell me they're interested, I'm like, you should apply. You should do it, right? Definitely. Like, go for it then, but then they got all the excuses, I can't do it because of this, and this. And I'm like, well, if you changed can't to I can change this, right? And, I think it would make such a big difference. And I think that, we would be able to, help the community I feel like it would put them more at ease or make them feel more safe, right? Just like I said, like, I treat everybody that I come across like my family, right? This is the first time that this crime, even though I've handled that crime maybe 1,000 times, I'm treating it like this is the first time for them or for me, right? And so I'm going to do everything I can to help them out. And so I feel like in the Polynesian community, that's all we're taught to do is to love and care for one another, care for other people. Like, we're very loving people, I want to say.
No, we are.
And so, like, I think that's one of the biggest things that I've definitely pushed in my career and changed in my career is I am very loving and helpful towards people just because that's how I was raised. And that's why I think that's why I'm able to talk to people a little more is because I'm like, no, like, I want to help you. How can I help you?
Right.
Tell me what I need to do to help you. Right. And obviously there are moments where I have to take charge and be like, okay, well, you can't help now. It's my turn to help. Yeah. Right. But like, I think it would be amazing if we had more Polynesian people in the law enforcement world, because I've seen the cultural disconnect.
For sure.
And it definitely would make a difference.
Nice.
Well, Brei, we really appreciate you coming up, taking some time to share with our people your story, and definitely inspiring. Where can, whether it be people that are trying to get fit to become a police officer, whether it's somebody that wants to go on a ride along. Brei's also a fitness fanatic, and so she does she does competitions and all that. And so
you do I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. You do competition?
Yes, I am into the bodybuilding world and lifting. I go to the gym every day.
Yeah,
I used to, and then I stopped.
But where can people find you on your social media platforms?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I don't know how to work Twitter, so I'm not on there.
Yeah, I don't know how to work either.
You go ahead and drop your IG handle. What's your IG handle?
It's at Little Cop Hops.
We'll tag it down below.
Yeah,
we'll definitely tag it down below.
So where did the hops come from? Is that from Zootopia?
Yeah, it's definitely from
That's
Zootopia.
crazy.
I actually have a stuffed animal of Judy Hopps in my patrol car.
How fitting.
And a lot of people are like, that's so funny.
I like
and I'm like, I'm not kidding. I watched that movie and I was like, did somebody watch me and train me? Like,
this
that
is
was
the story
me.
of
Like,
my life.
all the bunnies, all the bunny kids. I was like, that's my parents. Like, I was like, somebody followed my story.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. Yeah, the fox on there was smooth. I like it a lot. That's a really good movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch it.
Yes, go watch it.
But yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for taking some time. We really appreciate it. To all of our viewers, thank you very much for taking this time to listen. We hope that you've picked up something meaningful, something that you can use in your life. use her as a resource. Like she said, she jumped in this in this profession to help people. So you got her IG handle.
Yes,
we'll drop
me.
We'll drop it down below. What was that?
They can message me at any time. Like I'll reach out. Like any questions, I'll answer them.
Shoot your shot. She's single, right?
Yes.
I don't know, man.
I mean, the guy outside thinks otherwise, but you know.
No, seriously, reach out to her if you have any questions, and just to continue to push forward. I know that these are hard times right now. These are crazy times, and more than anything, just make sure that you're safe. We love each and every one of you, whether we know you or not. We appreciate your support. Keep yourself, keep your loved ones safe during this time. And, this would be a perfect time for you to kind of sit back and reflect on your life, what you're doing, and think about how you can be prolific when these times end, because these times will end. And, it's going to be either sink or swim. Yep. I mean, it's always been ready. Like that. Yeah, it's always been like that.
Stay ready so you ain't got to get ready.
But as always, we love you guys. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, find ways to be prolific.
Yeah.
You made this?
Man.
Appreciate it, Brei.
You're pretty authentic, Brei. That was pretty good. You done this before?